What's going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of the Bring the Juice Colts podcast. Sorry in advance if my voice sounds weird or if I have to cough or something like that. Kind of dealing with a cold right now, and it kind of sucks. But either way, just wanted to let y'all know that at the top of the video. So I apologize if I sound kind of weird. But this video would be very important to kind of remind everybody of what's been going on. Obviously, last night, Cody put up a video that said, that we are at sixth in the playoff seeding right now, which is great. This is exactly what we needed as Colts fans. And this is the exact situation that the Colts wanted to be in coming out of their bye week. This is what they needed now. So now they know their destiny is now in their hands. They have control of it. They can control what goes on from this point forward, right? Well, I'm going to kind of take you through a couple of the different scenarios that would enable us to be able to get the best seeding possible and to see what else to go from here. So let's first talk about the best case scenario. Let's just say first things first, that we win out the rest of the way. Let's just say we go 4-0. We beat the Patriots, we beat the Cardinals, we beat the Raiders, we beat Jacksonville. Well, there's absolutely no way we wouldn't make the playoffs. So we would be in. I think a lot of people are wondering, can we even take the division with that record? I think the only thing that would keep us from doing that is the fact that, the Titans would have to lose. I think would have to lose 3 of their last 4 games. And I don't think the Titans are going to do that. They do have the Steelers coming up next week. They'd have the 49ers. They have the Dolphins. They have the Texans. 4 teams that right now I would seriously suggest that the Dolphins probably be their toughest competition at this point. Well, that and the 49ers. 49ers are now in the playoff rankings too in the NFC. They kind of did a jump as well with their win over Cincinnati. So the Dolphins and the 49ers, that one will be tough. I think they'll beat the Steelers. I know they'll beat the Texans. Again, keeping the 11-6 if they did, they would still own the record over us. It would be. I don't think there's a point where the Colts would even take the division. It's just not going to happen. But again, like I said, going 4-0, if the Colts were able to make that scenario happen, then that's exactly what we would need to maintain a playoff spot. And who knows, even if they go undefeated the rest of the way, there is the possibility, the Chargers could lose a game or two. They are going to have to face the Chiefs. They are going to have to face the Broncos, who are in it. 3 of their last 4 games are against division opponents. They're going to have a lot of tough games ahead of them. Even with their record, that's a tough order for the 3 out of your last 4 games to be all division opponents. And especially with the way the Chiefs are playing, what's at stake for the Denver Broncos. And, the Raiders might want to just upset the Chargers. So, there's a good possibility that the Colts could go into the 5th seed with that. So, again, that's fairly understandable. But that's not exactly why we're all here. We kind of want to know the importance of each game, and we want to talk about each one here. Well, let me kind of just break down the importance of each game here before I go into a scenario where the Colts could go 3-1 and still make the playoffs. Let me kind of just break that down. So the Patriots, in my opinion, that game is the most important game the rest of the season, and it's not even close. Beating the Patriots at home, an AFC rival opponent, is the most important game the rest of the way. It can open a lot of things up in the rest of the league. If anything, it actually could help bring the Patriots down 2 or 3 spots in the actual. If the Patriots were to lose and the Titans, Chiefs, and the Ravens all won, there's a possibility the Patriots could go down to the 3rd or even the 4th ranked spot just by that. And we know that the AFC record thing is what really matters. And, as much as the Cardinals game is also a very important game for us, the Arizona Cardinals, if the Colts were to even lose, if the Colts were to lose a game, if the Colts were to lose a game the rest of the way and still have a potential spot to make the playoffs, the only game they could afford to lose is the game against the Arizona Cardinals on Christmas Day. It's the only one that they could afford. Because losing to the Patriots, the Raiders, or to Jacksonville would hurt their AFC record. And that is what's keeping Indianapolis right now over teams like the Browns, the Bengals, and the Broncos, who all have similar records to the Colts. The only thing that's different about it is the fact that the Colts have the better AFC record. So we've been losing to teams in the NFC, but we haven't been losing as much to teams in the AFC. And that trend needs to continue to happen in order to keep our wild card spot in check. So the game against the Patriots, Colts have done fairly well off bye weeks. Obviously, the Patriots are going to be on a bye. So both teams are going to come into this game extremely prepared. And that's obviously a very scary thing if you're going up against Bill Belichick. But the Colts can put together a good game plan. I think that the Colts can mix some things up on a young rookie quarterback in Mac Jones. That game is so important to the playoff picture, guys, that it is absolutely critical we win that game. It's critical. I'm not saying that it's impossible that we get into the playoffs still if we were to win out after this game, but it makes it that much more difficult. And it makes it that much more likely we wouldn't make it. So this game is going to need to be a playoff atmosphere. I know that Cody's going to go to that game. It needs to be loud and it needs to be lively in Lucas Oil. And then the Christmas Day game, like I said, against the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, like I said, this is probably the only game that the Colts could potentially lose and still be okay. Like I said, it wouldn't affect their AFC record. We would still be 8-7. Would we potentially still be in? That might be a good question. But then you look at games like the Raiders and the Jaguars, again, 2 teams that have been struggling, but I mean, the Raiders have had our number at times. It seems like every year the Colts and the Raiders trade blows back and forth with each other and win every other year. Colts can't take the Raiders lightly, especially if it sounds like Waller's probably going to be back by that time. And obviously Jacksonville left us disoriented the first time. But at the same time, I think that the Colts will be better prepared for that. But, if we look at the rest of these, I mean, again, the Chargers and their remaining schedule, I mean, they're going to have a difficult time. I mean, they're going to have the Chiefs. I mean, they'll play the Texans. That's almost a guaranteed win for them. I mean, the Broncos, like I said, I think we prefer to have the Chargers win that game over the Broncos and the Raiders because, we want them to win out in those last 2 games, just keeping them afloat because, if the Broncos win, then that makes it even more tricky. So, it's kind of one of those situations where we're rooting for the Chargers to beat up on their divisional opponents outside of the Chiefs to make it easier on us. And then obviously the Bills, as long as the Bills maintain the same record as us, we would get above them because of the fact that we won the head-to-head matchup. But, looking at the teams they have to face, they got to face the Panthers, they got to face the Falcons, and they got to face the Jets as 3 of their last 4 teams. So they're easily going to go 3-1 throughout this, or 4-0 to end the season. They're going to face the Patriots on the 26th, which might end up being their only loss. It might be, and they could still potentially win it. But, that's going to be their only potential loss, I view, in the future. So the importance of going 4-0, 3-1 reminds you again of just how important it is, because the Bills could sneak their way back in. And they're still in. They're still in the 7th seed. So they could the only reason that we're ahead of them is because of the fact that we won against them. And then you look at the Browns. I mean, the Browns got to face the Raiders. I think it's kind of tricky to think who we want to win that game. I think you would want the Raiders to win, because obviously they have the worst record, so you prefer to have them win. And then the Browns got to face the Packers. That'll be tough for them. Going to have to face the Steelers and the Bengals. That's going to be tough. 2 divisional opponents. It's going to be difficult for them. Browns were one of those teams that jumped up 3 spots yesterday too, because of their win over Baltimore. 3 spots, just like what we did. They're the last spot in to potentially get into the playoff. The Bengals, obviously losing to the 49ers was huge. And then the next matchups they're going to have, they got a rough schedule coming up. They got the Broncos, they got the Ravens, they got the Chiefs, and the Browns. So major shakeup for the Bengals too. Again, the Browns, the Broncos, and the Bengals are going to be playing hand in hand with each other all the rest of the way. So it's going to be very touchy and very difficult to figure out if the Colts are going to maintain a spot if they were to go 3-1. Broncos, obviously, same situation as the Chargers' last 3 games. Their all divisional opponents are going to have to play the Bengals. So it's going to be important in those. And like we already said, we already discussed the Titans. So the level of importance, again, like I said, the Patriots game is the most important game on the schedule the rest of the way by a long shot. I'd say the least important game for the rest of the season is the Arizona Cardinals, because like I said, losing to that team, while it would hurt our chances of making it into the playoffs, us still having the better AFC record after it potentially going 3-1 is still much better if we lose to them versus an AFC opponent. And then obviously the Raiders and the Jaguars, that's the important ones as well. Those are just as important to win in the AFC, especially if the Raiders somehow find a way to start winning games, then that can be important as well. So that's just going to do it for this one, guys. Again, Colts control their own destiny here. They're going to have to go 4-0, 3-1 at the least in order to be able to make it into the playoffs, because you basically have 1, 2, 3, 4 teams on the bubble right now that have the same record as them, right? So you really need to be able to step up in these moments. The Colts, coming off their bye, they're going to have their best game of the season against one of the best teams in the NFL right now. So it's going to be one of those things where they're really going to need to step up and be that team. So again, thank you guys again so much for the continued support. Greatly appreciate it. Hopefully this video was actually good, despite the fact that I can't really talk much right now. But thank you guys again so much for the continued support. Really appreciate it. As always, go Colts.